Today's episode is brought to you by 5Line Designs. Bring your brand to light with 5Line at fivelinedesigns.com. Here at 5Line, we like to ask, what can we do for you? We're here to help you and your business grow from all angles. Whether it's building the voice of your brand, redesigning your assets, or building out a website, 5Line is here to help you step your game up and beat out the competition. No matter what stage you're in, whether you're just starting or you've been up and running for many years, make your next move your best move by working with 5Line. You won't regret it. Schedule a meeting to see what we can do for you today at fivelinedesigns.com. Welcome to the Business Grind, where we give you an inside perspective on what it takes to start, build, and run a successful business. Here are your hosts, Danny Shaw and Sean Michael Wellington.
All right. Hello to everyone in podcast land today. Thanks for joining us. Sean, how are you feeling?
Feeling good and happy to talk about a new company this week and another breakdown.
Okay, yes, let's get into this case study. So on today's episode, we're going to discuss the creation and rise of Mailchimp. We'll cover topics such as their early beginnings, the continued growth, marketing strategies, and takeaways that can be applied to your business journey along the way as well. Right? Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this one. This is I'm excited to discuss this because there's a lot of nuggets in Mailchimp's journey and success along the way that I think would be valuable for a lot of our viewers today.
Yeah, and before we jump in, question for you. I mean, I know the answer, but it's a question for our audience to learn. Are you a heavy Mailchimp user?
Oh, I am a heavy Mailchimp user for sure. I use it for myself. I use it for other clients. I also recommend it to a lot of my clients along the way when they're trying to figure out their marketing strategy and which platforms to go to use. I usually lead them towards Mailchimp.
Me personally, I am not a big user of it, but I feel like a receiver of it. I get plenty of inbox things that I see have been sent using Mailchimp.
Right.
So, I'm very aware of it in that regard.
Well, I think before we even dive into it, I think we don't want to assume that everybody know who and what Mailchimp is. Right?
True.
So maybe we start just to lay the groundwork and the foundation of what Mailchimp is. So how would you describe Mailchimp to someone who doesn't know what Mailchimp is or what they do?
I'm paraphrasing a little bit from their corporate page, but they're basically email marketing automation platform. They automate your email marketing for you, so it's you're not typing individual emails to your potential clients and customers.
Okay, no, I would agree with you. I mean, I think at this point they're might be slowly evolving into some sort of a CRM type solution for a lot of people as well. But yes, at their core, they are a email marketing automation platform for sure. So before you asked me that out the gate. Well, actually, who do you use for your business if you're not using Mailchimp?
You know what? My business right now doesn't necessarily need that much email marketing for what we're doing. So that's why I don't use it. I'm not using it for that service. We're not like hitting a high target of people. So
you out here spamming folks from your private email, Sean. That's
but you set us up for a perfect, which was kind of be my question slash topic is like, what's the practical applications of having an email marketing service, right? Like, where does it come into play? If, like you said, for people who've never used it before, this company blew up and it happened after the .com boom, so they weren't a product of necessarily the .com boom and rising through that. They have a practical service that people actually need for their business. So right.
Well, I mean, there is a practical use, but there's also a legality use. Like I know probably a lot of people may not realize it, but legally you're not supposed to be just emailing people willy-nilly for marketing services and things of that nature. From your own email account. And even if you have a business account or a Mailchimp account or any of these other platforms account, there are laws where you are obligated to opt in and have permission from these people to communicate and market it to them. So, and that really can't be done through your private email account. So that is the practical business use, even if people aren't aware of it. And then from an optimization and just growing your business. It's just more efficient and optimal to have some sort of platform where you have all of your contacts and can send segmented communications for your various business services and offers and communication as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps you speed up that process of reaching out to your clients and or any other correspondence that needs to be done on like a bigger scale, like a mass scale, not individual correspondence, right?
Right. Exactly. All right, so let's hop into the early beginnings of Mailchimp then, right? So the early beginnings of the company, it was founded by Ben Chestnut, Mark Armstrong, and Dan Kurzuzzi. Am I pronouncing that right? I might be pronouncing it. Casillas. Okay, Casillas. Right. But those are the founders of Mailchimp. So the general story about the start of how the company was created was that Ben and Mark, if I'm not mistaken, were web designers, right? Working for a bigger company and taking on bigger clients and corporate clients of that nature. And they got laid off, right? They got laid off from their job, and they opened up their smaller design marketing firm and things of that nature. But they didn't start off by saying, hey, let's start an email service. It was really, they were doing designs and helping their clients with a way to send emails. And Chestnut, he essentially had old code that he had written for an earlier project. It was essentially a greeting card company that he had code for it was a failed company, and used that code, as the starting point to help their customers send out emails to their respective clients. And for a long time, that wasn't even their main service. That was really their side business and side project, right? So they were primarily web designers working with their clients, and hey, this code and this service was an add-on. And then around 2007 is when they decided to shift from their web design operation and then focus solely on Mailchimp and email marketing service.
The business it wasn't like a overnight success boom situation.
Oh no, not at all. Which is what I like. So, which is what I personally admire and respect so much about their story, right? Because one, it wasn't the traditional startup like, hey, we have this hot idea, we're gonna get all this VC funding, we're gonna do hyper growth, third round of funding, Series C funding, and try to outbeat the market and the competition. It was really business. These type of business stories I really like just having an affinity for, because they've always been profitable. Right, it started from a need for their customers. It wasn't saying, "Hey, we're just going to try to figure something out and push it out there." It's like, "All right, well, we have a web service business. And this is fine. Our customers is trying to ask us, is there a way we can help them with their emails? We're providing value. We see that there's value here in this emailing operation as well. Actually, it's becoming so valuable that we can shut down our web design operation and focus exclusively on that, and along the way, continuously growing and scaling the business accordingly without having to take any additional investor money and so forth, right?
Right. It's a great story. Just a great way to grow. Like, I mean, if you don't have to worry about anyone else infusing capital in your business, like all off of profits, that's awesome.
Right. And the business is actually, to this day, it's still owned by the owners, right? They don't have like an investing group, or they haven't done an IPO, and they're very profitable and will continue to remain profitable and big for quite a while. Right. Yeah. But let's talk about, just I guess as what were some of the elements that led to their continuous growth and sustainability by focusing just on email in 2007. One thing I think was very key is that in 2007, you probably wouldn't have gauged that success would have happened by creating an email service business, because there was just a lot of spam. I mean, there's a lot of spam now, but it was like one study around that time that found out that 95% of emails sent in 2007 were spam emails, right? Wow. So what compels you to say, yeah, we got these stats, but we're still going to go all in on the email marketing services, right? And then also, I don't know if you remember, I vividly remember around that time, Mailchimp wasn't even the leader in that category. I know initially Constant Contact was the big boy in the arena at that time. I don't know if you.
No, I don't even necessarily remember. I don't remember that company.
Oh, wow.
So they provided the same service?
said, I don't even know who you was. Yes,
No.
so I believe Constant Contact is still around, but I know early on in the, from my own experiences web designing and doing this type of work, it was Constant Contact. Constant Contact was the leader. They had an IPO in 2007 that raised $107 million as well, and they were the dominant player in the email category. Yeah, so I was when at least from my perspective, when Mailchimp did get into the arena, I did like them, but I definitely remember just feeling like Constant Contact was the leader. They were the dominant player, and they would continue to dominate. But as we can see with a lot of the businesses that we've covered in the case studies and going behind the scenes, everything that's it doesn't always appear what it is on the surface, right? Because now we all know about Mailchimp, and like you just said, you've never even heard of Constant Contact.
No.
All right, so I'm gonna give the floor to you for a minute because I feel like I've been dominating right now. So go for it.
Well, damn, because I'm gonna kick it right back to you, but I'm gonna set it up first because I want to talk. You kind of alluded to it, is how they were able to become profitable, and they experimented with different pricing strategies and like ways to basically monetize their service.
Right.
So that's where I was gonna kick it back to you. I don't know, what did you think of some of their early strategies? I know they had like 3 pennies for what is it, like email credits and things like that. So they were very low. What's the word? Low. I guess low cost. Low cost items. Yeah.
But so I didn't have a problem. I mean, I thought it was fine. Here's what I really took away from their pricing structure that really impressed me was that they didn't offer a freemium model. There was no freemium model. You had to pay for you had to pay for Mailchimp out the gate. There wasn't like when you hear about a lot of other tech startups and tech companies, they try to lure you in with the use this for free or this freemium model and XYZ and things of that nature, right? Mailchimp was not giving freemium models out the gate. They were charging. So regardless of how they were doing it, through credits, or services, they from gate said we're going to charge initially, which I thought was very smart and strategic. That it's a different way. They weren't concerned on super hyper growth. They were concerned with specifically helping small businesses compete with the bigger corporations out there.
Speaking to that a little bit more, like doing the research, I saw at one point they had 5-month plans, so it was to help them make their revenue more predictable. Which I thought was genius. It's like you know how many your customer base, you can predict your revenue up to 5 months ahead, essentially.
Right. And so they knew they had customers that was already willing to pay, and also the proximity to the customers, right? Like they really served underserved market and an ignored market, which was the small business owners, right? They had that. So not only were they providing a service to small business owners, they also had metrics and information on these small business owners that in turn allowed them to grow their own business. So it was like the information kept feeding itself. The more they were helping their customers, the more they were able to help their own business as well and help grow it, right? And their user base.
Right. And as far as I know, at least in the public, I mean, granted, they are a private company, so we don't know what they're doing. But it seems as though, from everything I've seen, they're not selling data for profit. So, that's just a good thing on the optics side of everything. People don't want their data being sold and manipulated and stuff like that. So they're really using the data to find qualified customers and improve their product, but not really selling it on the open market from anything that I've seen.
No, so. Agreed. In my research, there was a excerpt that I did read where one of the founders mentioned that the way they allow their customers to advertise on Facebook and Mailchimp in a way that allows Mailchimp to not be dependent on the Googles and the Facebooks for their success of their business. So I think that was very strategic and genius of them to have their business set up in that way. So as a customer, I can use Mailchimp to set up what I need to set up. I can use Mailchimp to set up campaigns in Facebook as well. But as the owner of Mailchimp, my business is not dependent on Google, Facebook, and all of those connections, right? So that was very strategic. Yeah.
Another thing that I thought was interesting about their company is that the actual website, right? They're making money off of the hits they get, off of the traffic they get to the actual website, beyond the revenue stream of providing the service. So Just thought that was cool too. That just people knowing about you coming to the site and how heavily trafficked it is. I think it was in the top 1,000 sites at some point for most of his tenure. So it's like you guys are making money off of the traffic. You're making money from the customers, and you have the subscription model. So it's just very smart revenue plans that pivot as they grow.
Right, right. And I just like I said before, I just really admire like they came into the game, and let's just also step back, and not just because of how their revenue model is. When you think about how they set up their business in the face of how a lot of other tech startups have come into the game, right? Let's also be clear. Mailchimp has been around for about 17 years at this point, right? This isn't an overnight, startup company that just got high valuation and now we're hearing about them, all over the place. They've been around for 17 years, so their growth has been steadily inclining over the years, right? And in a world where you have companies. I mean, how many of these companies can we talk about in the tech space that have rose to prominence so fast and then fallen from grace, right? Like a living social, or even Groupon is still around, but
it's not what it was.
It's not what it was, right? Where in this case, Mailchimp has just been a steady incline. Amongst an arena full of other people that are not doing it the way they did it, and still be able to remain profitable and independent, right? With their own technology and data along the way. So I think that's really commendable and really speaks to how slow and steady can win the race. One of the turning points that I felt, just because I'm a little bit more familiar with the company, was how they started approaching their advertising and their advertising strategy towards people knowing about the brand, right?
Are you getting at the whole Serial podcast, or am I jumping ahead?
No, we can get to the Serial. There was a few other areas where they were doing, but Serial was a pivotal moment, so we could talk about Serial, yes.
I mean, essentially, it came from a mispronunciation, right? That's what really allowed them to pivot. On Serial, well, let me start from the beginning, right? For those who not know, Serial was a popular, I guess you'd call it a weekly podcast. It was like a docuseries situation where they broke down a cold case. But Mailchimp was the main sponsor of it. So as the popularity of that podcast grew, of course, there was a lot of interest in the company itself, and people searching. For those who didn't know what it was about, they would search online to see what it was. But one of the promo spots, I believe, it was a promo spot from the talent on Serial. They mispronounced the name of the company, didn't they? I'll let you jump in if you know more details than that, because I wasn't really a Serial listener, but I do know the story.
For sure. So I was a big Serial listener. That first season, I was hooked. So that first season, they were talking about Aslan, I believe his name was. And so they was trying to get to, it was about, that podcast just caught everybody by storm. So everybody was hooked to try to see if he was truly innocent or guilty, or what was the details of that case. So they were sponsored by Mailchimp, and Mailchimp just had this kooky, crazy campaign where they didn't even mention Mailchimp in the ads, right? They mentioned all these other words that sounded like Mailchimp and created legit products and brands around it, like Failchimp. They created something called Fail Chips, which was like a potato chip brand that was of crumbled pieces of potato chips, right? So they had all these other different words that sounded like Mailchimp, and they never mentioned it in the ads, but it just led to, we started becoming aware of it. It was in our conscious about who this company was. For me, I was already aware, and I was like, I'm actually not mad. This is very strategic, right? And clever. It was actually clever. Like the visuals, there's a whole case study on the visuals, and they did commercials, they did movies, they did like little short movies and videos. Like they really went all out with that whole campaign. But if you were not aware of who Mailchimp was at the time, then you probably, like, that definitely was gonna bring attention to them by advertising on that podcast. And I think also it was at a time when, it may feel like everybody's doing a podcast now, us included, but podcast at that time still wasn't that big just yet. So
no, that was probably the biggest one. That's the one that opened the floodgates, I feel like.
Right.
So
yeah. And if I'm not so that just kind of led to the resurgence as well. Also, I just, keep bringing it back to the small business owners and serving that community at first. I just really thought that was very strategic. So if I'm not mistaken, one of the founders, or maybe both of the founders, come from families where their parents owned their own business, right? Their mother owned a hair salon and so forth. So definitely had a connection to the small business owners and knew that their needs and how they could be truly valuable to their company's growth and future. Where I think a lot of times, especially in the tech space, there is there seems to be a common behavior to ignore those type. It's either usually consumers or big businesses, right? You don't really see a lot of companies trying to tackle that small to mid-sized company, and at least not that I'm aware of, right? And that was their sweet spot, which I think it kind of relates to how I like to work as well myself, right? So I definitely thought that was very strategic and smart of them to focus on that and continue to focus on that, even when they have had opportunities to sell out to larger investors or to focus on enterprise licenses and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it just comes from the value of the company, and not value in terms of valuation, but the values of the company. They always seem to be interested in serving smaller to medium businesses and helping, the little guy compete with the big guy. So to that point, it seems like it's consistent with what they've always been about.
Right. Exactly. Also, when you think about the location of the company, right? The company was started and founded in Atlanta, Georgia, which is not what you would consider a tech hub or a tech bubble as well.
Right. Not Silicon Valley at all, no.
ATL, shouty. You know what I mean? So that like they did things, a lot of things they just did their own way. And of course, we'll celebrate a company when they do it their own way and are very successful. But and that's why we're talking about Mailchimp right now. But if they weren't, we would say they should have been in Silicon Valley or something like that. But because they have proven to be successful in this environment that didn't lend itself to being a tech hub and all the trappings that come with it, we're also celebrating a little bit more for that as well, right?
Yeah, they don't have that Silicon Valley stigma with their company.
When we talk about business and we talk about how people are looking for hyper growth and just acceleration and just becoming an overnight sensation, I think this is just a good example of how, if you stick to your plan and not saying you can't worry about what everybody else is doing, but stick to what you know and stick to your path and your purpose, your journey, your business journey will sustain if you're finding what is valuable to your customers and working through that, as opposed to trying to force the new thing and the new hot wave and the wave of the future, for your clientele.
Yeah, what does sustainable growth look like for you as a company? And it sounds maybe contradictory to some business principles, but it's like stay in your lane, don't overreach, because how are you gonna, because you have to maintain that. So
right. So sometimes it comes to stay in your lane. Sometimes it's like, all right, let me get a little out the gate, right? Yeah. What do you think about like their whole branding and even just using the mascot? His name Frederick. Frederick. He has a long name actually. It's not just Frederick. It's Fred Von something. It's a very multi-syllable name.
It's cool. I'm a little side-eye monkeys in branding sometimes in general, but it's cool. I'm not mad at it. It definitely catches the eye and it gets you. You know what I mean?
I feel you. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Sean. All right, fair enough.
But it's cool though. No, nothing egregious there with this particular branding.
It's funny you mention that because I didn't even pick up on that. So the fact that I didn't, and considering how I can usually pick up on that, I think that might be a sign that they did a good job because
that's true.
They didn't do nothing crazy or egregious, especially 17 years in the game, right?
Right. It could have been crazy, right? 17 years ago, who knows? Yeah. So
bring it back to when they first started, and I was aware of them, and I was also aware of Constant Contact. For me, I definitely was like, oh, okay, well, Constant Contact gave me more professional vibes, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
the name of the company, the whole design, all of that stuff. It gave me that type of vibe. And so when Mailchimp came along, I definitely was like, oh, they're a little bit more playful. You know, they have this muggy, and then they have, you know, these animations. And I do remember thinking, you know, this is fine, but is this the most professional, right? Is this
Mm-hmm.
gonna really you know, if you're a certain type of company and you see that Mailchimp logo on the bottom of the newsletter you're sending and things like that, is just really gonna convey the image of your company that you want. Now, granted, there is a option where you can pay for a version where it doesn't, but early on, it was a little interesting. It wasn't something I was used to or even thought, you know, was the right move for the company, right? As an early user, but it definitely worked and it's held up over time. They've updated the branding, they've updated the logo, they've even updated the mascot and added more animations and features to add, you know, just give it more character over the years with the branding. That truly works for them and how they're moving.
Yeah, that's the thing. It works for them and it works for their offering. For sure.
Right. Oh, I'm just gonna circle back. So some of the brands that when they did that whole Mailchimp campaign, but they didn't mention Mailchimp,
Mm-hmm.
it was Mail Shrimp, Mail Shrimp, Fail Chips, Mail Crimp. It was like men with who had crimps in their hair, like the hairstyle for crimps. Veil Him, that was like a musical production. Kale Limp, which was like Kale, and they, you know, did something weird with that. Nail Champ, which was just a campaign featured around nail art, right? Well Synth, which was like a beat machine or web based beat machine. Gel Blimp and Snail Print. So they had all these words that definitely was not Mailchimp, but you know the repetitiveness of it and the whole branding around it definitely was like, all right, at a certain point, it sounds so close, you're gonna just really absorb what it's really about and who the main company is, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
just a little bit of play on word, or not a little bit, a lot of
Yeah,
play on
a
words.
lot of playing words, and they each of these words had a full on ad campaign and integration and execution for each one of these different products and associated programs with their campaign. So yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
smart.
yeah. So then, which after a while though, what I thought was interesting is that after being successful for so long, like one thing they do tweak their models. So like I mentioned before, they didn't come out the gate with a freemium model, but at a certain point they did offer a freemium model. They started tweaking their pricing structure, and essentially, I guess we can say they started cannibalizing their core business or the pricing of their core business and their revenue opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was a very, I guess you wouldn't call it a risky move, but it proved to be very successful in the long run as well. Yeah.
Well, elaborate. What made it successful? Because when you say cannibalizing their audience, I
Because
mean, you're
okay,
really, yeah, like you said, you're cutting into your own profits.
you
Yeah,
cut
go
into
ahead.
your own profits initially, right? It's like you're
Mm-hmm.
cutting into your own profits because now if I'm charging, I believe it was around $15 a month for X, Y, Z, and there was no freemium option. Now we're giving a freemium option, so people who might be paying us might actually fall into that freemium model now and not need us for that
Mm-hmm.
$15 a month service. And now we are also lowering our core cost, which on the surface level, lowering costs will equal less revenue, right? But and
Right.
now you're offering a freemium model, which is going to allow more people to come in for free and possibly not pay for that service. Like people will try to maintain and stay within that freemium model, so use those resources without paying. But that didn't prove to be the case. They continue to grow and attract more customers under the freemium model and also continue to get continuous paying customers because of the value and the service that they still was offering to their consumers. So that's what I mean. Where it's like initially you might think, "Oh my God, why are we cutting our prices and offering a freemium model? To what extent? It's going to cannibalize our structure. We're doing so good right now, but you know." The long term vision and thinking was that it will pay off in the long run, which it is, which it has been doing.
Right. Yeah, they've expanded their user base. So.
Yeah, for sure, and taking on more businesses. And you know, a lot of times a lot of businesses come in thinking, oh yeah, I'm just going to use that free model and call it a day, and then before you know it, they're they're upping their subscription service and paying, right? Would you have made that move for your business?
So I want to pretend like I would have the foresight and say yes. But I do know it's hard to look at paying customers, so to speak, and give them an option, give them out. It's hard as a business owner to do that, but I want to say yes, that I would have the foresight to understand that it's a part of the bigger growth strategy. So, What about you?
I would probably. I mean, I would not probably. I would definitely have to do a lot of analytics and work on a few models. I would have to work on a few models, a few price model and situations to see. Okay, I'm not opposed to it, but it couldn't just be because I have a gut feeling for a move like that. I'm like, have all these customers, X, Y, and Z. If I'm going to drop this, what it's going to mean. And also look at the other efforts that I would have to put to maybe make up for those costs, or see how long would it take me to, make up that revenue and things of that nature. But I'm never opposed for a nice strategic decision if I have the data to back it up and confirm it. And
I'm sure they did. They don't seem like the kind of guys who would rush into a decision like that.
Right.
So
right.
I'm sure they have plenty of data to back it up.
Oh, for sure. They have. I know a lot of times we talk about data, and we usually go to Google and Facebook, and those companies say, oh, they have all the data, but Mailchimp has a bunch of data on so many businesses and small businesses who use their service that we have no idea what their insights are. They do. Right. And like we said earlier, they're not dependent on Google or Facebook for any of that type of partnership and so forth. So the strategics, who knows what insight they have that's allowing them to make the strategic moves that they have made and continue to be successful with. I feel like every mailing list, from the solo entrepreneur to big corporations and companies, I know when it's a Mailchimp email, even if it doesn't have like the Mailchimp branding on it and so forth.
You can kind of tell just by the format. Huh?
Yeah, you can kind of tell by the format, some of the type usage, and just the way some of the legal items that's listed at the bottom of the newsletter is presented and formatted. Probably because I'm in Mailchimp so much on my own, I'm like, oh, that's a Mailchimp newsletter, and so forth, right?
So one quick thing before we wrapped up. It's like a trivia. I know but it was interesting. I didn't know this beforehand that Mailchimp is the DBA. It's the Doing Business As, but it's not the real name of the company. Did you know that before?
I know they changed the name a few times, so I didn't. At a certain point, I was like, I don't know what the full name is. What is it? Hit me with that.
Rocket Science Group LLC.
Oh, that's right.
Actual company.
Yeah. You're right. I think that was like one of the original names of one of the greeting cards. Yeah, okay. You got that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I never knew that. I just assumed they were Mailchimp. Was the name and the DBA. But,
right.
Yeah.
And another thing that I thought was very interesting when studying this company, we've talked about the longevity, how they were just, their success is really attributed to a few things. Their foundation and core being set on a good solid ground. Also because they were, pretty much always profitable, right? And didn't take on outside investors, which, I am kind of that mind. I think we've mentioned that on a few episodes. I'm really like anti-debt unless you really have to take on debt, right? So any type of investments, anything of that nature, if you really don't need it, don't take it. Focus on making your business profitable and then seeing where it goes from there. Because the minute you take on debt and take on investors, now you're trying to focus on your own business, obviously, and make that grow. But then now you have to be mindful and considerate of these investors and their concerns and needs and where they would like the company to go, and all of those factors come into play, right?
Right.
Which puts you in a crazy situation. But at the same time, I can say that now, but it's also very hard when you're in a position and you're trying to run a business and, investors come with a nice check waiting for you, right?
Yeah, it's hard to turn that down. Yeah, but if you have that, your eye on what the end goal is or what the growth strategy is,
right.
If it doesn't get you there, then you can turn it down.
Right. Well, what I did think was very interesting about some of the information that they did reveal about some of their clients and subscribers was that, it made sense because not only did they say, okay, we're not going to really focus on web design and really focus on this email, there are a lot of businesses now that they have under their suite and subscriber base who have Mailchimp accounts and don't have websites. And I thought that was
How does that work?
I thought that was very interesting. You can have a newsletter subscriber list, and I mean, I don't know what businesses a person may have, that lends itself to that. But a lot of people now, they're running their business. They have a subscriber list. I don't know, maybe they have, payments is set up through, Mailchimp offers payments now as well. But like, they don't have a full-fledged functioning website like we are used to thinking or considered as essential nowadays, right? Now it's like, here's a link to my mailing list, sign up, I'll email you later, here's a quick landing page, or here's a PayPal link, or things of that nature. So I thought that was very interesting.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because you're bypassing the click to do this is directly through the Mailchimp platform. Yeah,
I thought that was very interesting. All right, yeah. So that's about it for this week's episode about Mailchimp. When I initially was talking to Sean about this, I am a long time user of this, but not only am I a user of the platform, I just thought their story as a whole was a very good and inspirational story, especially in the world of tech startups and how everything is considered to move at like a hyper fast pace. But to see a company that has been in the game and steadily growing and climbing after 17 years, I thought was very inspirational, and something that a lot of business people who are starting their business, not just tech related, any business to be quite honest, could take from knowing the story of Mailchimp and how they've been able to maintain relevancy in this game in 2021.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of interesting strategies that they used along the way, and unconventional a little bit too, just based on what everyone else was doing.
Right. I would definitely say this is definitely a story of reinforcing sometimes when you have to go against the grain, but knowing and providing that value to your customers and not necessarily being influenced by outside people telling you what to do and how you should run your business. In some cases, it may be warranted, right? But in this case, they knew what they was working with, and they've even alluded to many times that they've had other offers on the table to be brought out or to scale or to focus on more enterprise-focused customers, but they've stayed true to their roots and what they were about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And their communication, like I said, I'm very like how they communicate, their branding overall. I will say I do think that their design background also gives them a leg up. Not to be biased to the design community, but I am biased to the design community. I do think knowing that the founders come from a design background also helped with the growth of the business as well, right? And like.
Yeah, I think so. I think you kind of see that in their product offerings too.
For sure. All right. So that's this week's episode. So Sean, I'm assuming when it's time for you to start using an email marketing service, and when you decide to stop spamming people from your personal account, that you will consider Mailchimp, and see if they might be a good fit for your business needs.
Yeah, I mean, the service is definitely top of the line, like top of that market. They're the go-to. I never even heard of the other one, which I like their name.
Yeah, I'm telling you, listen.
I really like their name.
I'm telling you, Constant Contact. You couldn't tell me that Constant Contact wasn't going to be the dominant player in this industry, which goes to tell you it's never over until it's over. Right? It's never over until it's over. So consider them and look up Constant Contact too when you get a chance. See what they're about.
Yeah, now that you say they're still in business, they weren't wiped off the face of the earth. So yeah, I may look into them too.
All right, cool. All right, so that's a wrap on this week's episode. Our case study on Mailchimp and key takeaways from their business journey that you can apply to your own path to starting and growing your own business. If you have a question you would like us to answer on the show, shoot us a message on any of our social media channels or shoot us an email at questions@businessgrindshow.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share on Spotify and iTunes. See you again soon. In the meantime, keep grinding.
The Business Grind is for entertainment purposes. Opinions expressed are those solely of the host and guests. Please consult with a professional and exercise discretion before engaging in any business endeavors.
I'm out here on the grind. I'm out here on the grind.